Fox Business Alert, more than 100 food trucks are heading towards southern Gaza as Israel begins 10-hour daily pauses of fighting to facilitate also air transport. That's what you're seeing on the screen. Food airdrops into the Gaza Strip. Israel is under massive pressure as claims of famine and a humanitarian crisis in Gaza escalate. Meanwhile, 661 days after Gaza terrorists attacked Israel on October 7th, murdering 1,200 people, 20 living Israeli hostages are still believed to be held captive by Hamas. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee joins me now from Israel. Ambassador, thank you for being here. If we could, let's begin with the renewed airdrops of aid. Israel has implemented this sort of tactical pause in fighting, 10 hours a day to increase the scale of humanitarian help to the Gaza Strip. What can you tell us about what food and help you have witnessed coming into the region? Because there's a lot of rumors and misinformation.
And a lot of it is just that. It's misinformation. The truth is the Israelis have been more than willing to see massive amounts of food. Just the other day, Liz, I put pictures out on Twitter that showed that there were over 900 trucks filled with food, thousands of pallets of food sitting, rotting in the sun, that the UN refused to move into Gaza to feed people that could have fed Gaza for 2 years. Why? Because they didn't like the way the U.S. was doing the process through GHF. I think those pictures shamed them, and they finally started moving some of that food into the people. But this idea that there is massive starvation by the thousands, a lot of the pictures that people are showing, they're not even realistic. In fact, there's one of them that shows a little boy. It's a terrible looking picture, tragic. But it turns out the little boy has a congenital medical condition. He's not starving, and the Israelis actually sent him to a hospital to get treatment. In another case, you see a child that is touted as being starving. He's next to his mother, who is obese. So somebody's eating. It wasn't the little boy, but the truth is he also had a medical condition. Liz, I'm not going to tell you there's not suffering in Gaza. There's a lot of suffering in Gaza, but here's the reason they're suffering: because of Hamas. These are animals. They're savages. They've murdered people. They've held hostages. They've tortured the hostages. They moved their civilians in the front of military targets. They have increased and caused the suffering. And if there's hunger, a lot of it is because when the food does go in, Hamas steals it and then turns around and sells it. President Trump gave us an order: get food to people, but do it where Hamas can't steal it. And we set up 2 months ago the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and it is working. It is working well. Over 95 million meals have been served, and there's a lot of misinformation. President Trump deserves credit for having sent aid 2 months ago, and you never hear about it.
What is so hard about protecting the aid areas? If you could tell me. We just showed video of children holding out pots and pans. It is really heartbreaking, and some of it I've seen over the past couple of months, so it could be old video. But that said, I would argue that you would say some of this is real, definitely. So where is the breakdown in allowing this? The Israelis are excellent when they put their minds to making something happen. But again, this goes to the question of why is the onus on Israel, the country that was attacked by the leaders of these people who are starving? Why is the onus on Israel to feed them?
There is an irrational hatred toward Israel that I can't even begin to understand, or certainly I can't explain it. And part of it is that it's coming some from the Europeans, some from the United Nations. The tragedy of seeing people who are holding out the pots and pans, keep in mind, Hamas has made it very difficult to get humanitarian aid to the people. They steal the food, then they turn around and sell it. They don't give it away, they sell it. They've had over $500 million of stolen food that they've been able to then use to pay their terrorist soldiers, and that's why they steal the food. And some of it is very difficult to get in because Hamas not only hijacks the trucks, but they shoot at the people who are coming to get it. It's a very dangerous situation, but primarily because you're dealing with people who do not want this war to end. Hamas is not interested in letting the hostages go, and it's been a horrific situation for the entirety of Israel. And I don't understand why people blame the attacked party, Israel, when they need to be putting a united focus on demanding that Hamas let the hostages go and that they walk away, put down their arms, and give up. President Trump has said Hamas has no future here. They're not going to govern Gaza. To let them do so would be like letting the Nazis run Germany after World War II.
Well, they took all of the aid from the past intifada and the past deals that Israel gave into of here, let's provide cement, let's provide concrete so that you can rebuild. And they, you know what they built? The tunnels. And in fact, I would like to say this, that in the last hour, the UN General Assembly just had a meeting. Of course, I'm sure you're aware of this. The Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Mohammed Mustafa, made a somewhat surprising comment. He said that Hamas needs to lay down its weapons and release the hostages unconditionally. Now, we know the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank is different from the Gaza Strip and Hamas, but at some point, will the people of the Gaza Strip start listening and give up these hostages?
Well, I don't know if Hamas will. The people in the Gaza Strip would love to see this end. They're suffering because of Hamas, and they've been suffering. I was delighted to see the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority say this. I met with him in his office a week ago in Ramallah, and I think you got to understand that even in the Palestinian Authority, they're sick of Hamas. It is making everything difficult for everyone, and there's no upside to this, except Hamas doesn't want to give up power because they know that if they let the hostages go, there's nothing holding back to keep them from being utterly destroyed.
Well, President Trump has been key in getting some of the hostages released by being very tough in his talk. Here's what he said yesterday, and I'd love for you to pick up at the end of it and explain maybe what he meant by this. Let's listen.
When you get it down to a certain number, you're not going to be able to make a deal with Hamas. Because once they give them up, then they feel that that's going to be the end of them. And what I said is exactly true. You know, they had a routine discussion the other day, and all of a sudden they hardened up. They don't want to give them back. And so Israel's going to have to make a decision. I know what I do, but I don't think it's appropriate that I say, but Israel's going to have to make a decision.
Knowing President Trump and how tough he was on Iran, when he says, I know what I do, can you venture to guess what that might be?
No one would love to see a peaceful conclusion to this more than President Trump. Look how patient he was with Iran. And he kept telling him, look, we'd love to negotiate this. We'd love to just have you stop your aspirations for a nuclear weapon because you're not going to get one. And then he said, you can do it the easy way or you can do it the hard way. They didn't believe him. They thought he was bluffing. Now they know this is not a president who bluffs. This is a president who makes a promise, keeps a promise. And Hamas would do well to listen to what he said and to listen to it in the context of what he did when he took action against Iran. The future of Hamas is not a rosy one if Donald Trump is in the White House. It's something they need to think about.
Ambassador Mike Huckabee, live from Jerusalem, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you shedding light on what's going on right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.